All right. What screen do you guys see?
You just started the broadcast a little bit early.
Okay. How do I stop it? I don't know what to do.
There's nothing you could do. Don't touch anything yet. Let's just
Gotcha.
we're just gonna sit here with it on broadcast mode, but I'm going to pause the recording.
Gotcha.
Okay, everybody, Mark Helton here, and today we have Vika. Vika, how do you say your last name? Is it
It's LOL, L-A-L.
Lal? Okay.
Yes.
I wasn't I wasn't sure if that it was just La and the L was silent.
Really?
Or both of the L's could be silent, it could be ah.
All right. All
Never
right.
mind.
Jokes aside, Mark Hilton.
So we are going to have a very special day today in the contact manager. From what I'm hearing, Vika was
Yes.
very excited yesterday about doing this training with everybody. So I'm going to be hanging out here as always in the background, and every now and then maybe I'll throw a question or two at you, but I don't want to steal your thunder, so we'll let you go ahead and take it away, Vika.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining in today. What I want to go over today is the contact manager, or the contact tab in other words. Now, before I jump into this tab in particular, I do want to start with some of the beginner things in terms of how to make sure that your account is set up properly. And what I mean by that is by the time zones, by making sure that your address is in there, your default number, things like that. A lot of people tend to skip that area. However, it's really important to make sure you take care of that area. You can find it up here on the top right, clicking on Profile. So of course, we have the basic section as you're seeing right now. This section, of course, we need to make sure that your name is in there, your address. This information that you're seeing right here is going to be found in your email footer if you happen to be doing email campaigns. Your default number is really important as well. You want to make sure that you have a number here because any system generated notifications or alerts coming from your account and your manager accounts is going to be sent from that number, unless other specified, of course. Um, that's probably the most important thing, especially the time zone. The time zone is going to be very important. It's going to be based off of when your campaigns are going to launch. So, of course, when you first go in and you sign into your accounts for the very first time, it's going to be defaulted to, I believe it's like Africa and Alaska or something like that. Of course, that is probably not your time zone. So you definitely want to make sure you come in and adjust the time zone accordingly so your campaigns will start on time. All right, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the contact tab. So again, when you first get your account, obviously you need to have contacts in here. There's only one type of campaign specifically that does not require contacts in your account prior to doing anything, and that's creating autoresponders. We'll definitely go into autoresponders at a later time. We'll not do that today. What I want to do is show you how to, of course, add contacts, how to maneuver the contact power dialer, import contacts, things like that. As you can see here in the contact tab, there's a lot of things that you can do. And as I mentioned, you have to have contacts in your account before you even get started with anything, and of course, groups. So first thing that I want to do is I want to go ahead and jump into, of course, adding a contact. Really simple stuff.
Okay, real quick question, Vika. I wanted
Mhm.
to talk to you about this because so what I see a lot is people just creating groups in the system and then just importing contacts and maybe using a few of the features that we have available. Like, for example, they'll send a broadcast,
Mhm.
voicemail, or maybe a broadcast text message or an email or whatever. Or maybe they'll use the follow-up features, or
Mhm.
maybe they'll send they'll use the power dialer. But I know that well, we've worked really hard to try to give everybody segmenting of their contacts, and giving them the ability to really manage their pipelines and that sort of thing. Um, what are some of the ways that we use the system here, in our office to be better at segmenting our contacts with different things, like, for example, products that they might have purchased or that sort of thing.
What I think what you're referring to is tags and, of
Mhm.
course, utilizing the default statuses. I'm definitely going to get into that information in just a moment. Of course, the default status kind of ties in with the sales pipeline. So, of course, if there's any users that are tuned in right now who, let's say, have a an agency in which are making outbound calls for them, kind of like a call center in a sense, but using the default statuses will definitely move those leads through the pipeline and the funnels that you create. Of course, there's also tags, which is a new feature that we've recently released, and that would definitely tie into the groups in a sense and
Mhm.
segments and filter through your leads in a specific way based on how you build it. But I'm going to definitely
Okay.
get into that information in just a little bit.
Okay. So my question to you is, when somebody is going to start adding contacts into the system, do you think that it's better for them to, build out all their groups, build out all their tags, build out all their custom fields, build out all of the things that they plan on using, and then start importing their leads, or should they constantly have that in a state of flux?
Well, definitely not in an unstable way. It's absolutely smart and suggested, of course, to have a plan before you even start doing anything. Really,
Hmm.
you can't just jump in and start messing with things and doing things, and you're going to do false starts. You're going to make mistakes, and that's common and it's natural. It happens, especially when you're new to a platform. So I would highly advise anyone to first have a plan in your mind, strategize, okay, what do I want to do with these contacts? I have 1,000 here. I have another spreadsheet with 1,000. What do I want to do with these people? How do I want to organize it? That's one of the biggest things is, the system is allowing you to ultimately organize it and segment it to your liking. And of course, going through the contact tab, we'll be able to go over all the different ways you can organize your contacts, your tags, your groups. That way, you have a better way of managing your contacts, your analytics, things like that. All right, so with that being said, let's jump in, and I'm gonna go through for the most part just about every single tab. There's some things that are self-explanatory, some things that don't need that much explanation as to what they do and how to do it. But in a sense, I'm gonna go through a flow, and you guys are gonna be able to see, the different things that can occur within this tab specifically. All right. So of course, the first thing that you're going to want to do, as I mentioned, is add a contact. There's multiple ways you can add a contact. One of the common ways is importing contacts. I'm definitely going to go over that in a minute because I know a lot of people always have questions and concerns when it comes to importing. So besides adding a contact, you also want to make sure you have a group in place. Now, let's jump into groups real quick. There's going to be You can create as many groups as you want. Let's put it that way. What I would suggest is, depending on who you're marketing to, how many people, if you have clients. Typically, if you have clients where you know for a fact that you're a company and you're marketing to different industries, you may want to consider taking up a white label account. And I won't really go into too many details about that and why. But when it comes to marketing to certain people, industries that is, or demographics, the groups can only take you so far. So you definitely want to keep that in mind, and we'll go over some more information about that. Maybe Jasmine might as well, since she's doing the white label webinars. Anyhow, to add a group, I'm sorry, you'll want to click on this button right here, and of course, go ahead and name it. So I'm just going to call this one. Now, of course, if you have team members in your account, in your manager account, this is where you'll be able to assign them. Now, this is pretty huge. Typically, when managers sign on team members under them, which you can do under the team tab, the manager has a way of controlling what the team member can see, what they have permissions to utilize, things like that. Here, of course, as you can see, assign permissions, you'll find this field in different areas throughout the system. What this means is that you're able to assign permissions to a team member that is listed under you as a manager to see the leads inside of this group and this group in particular. So that's something you definitely want to make sure that you have in place if you have team members under you. Now, in every group area, we do have a new lead notification area. Click on yes. As you can see, drops down two options. You can have both. You can choose one or the other. Now, please note that it does say right here that you're only going to get this notification if it comes from an external source. So, of course, you may ask yourself, well, what is that external source? Inbound calls. Okay, so when a new lead calls into your inbound number and they're not already in your system, it's going to be considered a new lead. And it's coming from an external source, so you'll get this notification. Another thing that would work for this would be the lead form, which we also offer. We have plenty of integrations as well. So if you're doing Facebook ads, if you're doing anything with maybe Woofu, ClickFunnels, all that stuff, that's an external source. If you set this up, you're going to get a notification sent to you. So let's say I want to do an email and a SMS. Of course, again, you can assign a member to receive this notification as well. If you need to CC maybe a partner or a business partner, things like that, this is where you'll be able to put that email, subject line, and your text. Now, keep in mind this message here that you're typing up is going to go to the team member or yourself, all right? Same thing with the text message here. So none of these notifications are going to the lead specifically. It's actually going to yourself or to a member that you're assigning permissions to. Keep that in mind. You can use tokens, as you can see, but you also want to keep in mind, if you're not gathering that information from that lead, you're not going to get it sent to you. So if you create a lead form and all you're asking for is an email address, if you're thinking that you can use a first name token and say, you know, hey, Johnny, we have a new lead, their name is, and you insert the first name token, that's going to be blank. You're not going to get a name, of course, because you don't have their name, right? So that's something you want to keep in mind. It's a common mistake. It's something that people overlook, but it's all right. Just want to clarify that. So yeah, setting up your notifications is definitely an option here. It's huge, especially if you're using your marketing to, you know, entice maybe a potential client. Now, after you've created your groups, you can always come back in and delete it if necessary. You can use the check marks on the left. So you can see it's going to tell you to delete groups. You can also use the Action tab and click on Delete. If you ever needed to edit something, you can always do so. It's going to take you right back to where we were just a moment ago. If you wanted to delete, we click on the Delete option here. It's going to take you to a new page. This is going to allow you to, you know, choose what you really want to do with this group. A lot of times we just want to bulk move an entire group into a new group or copy them. So as you can see, we have those options here. You can keep the group if you want to use it again, but move them or copy them completely out. All right, so that's definitely an option. A couple other things that we do offer when it comes to the groups is being able to scrub against the global suppression. That's the DNC list. And then, of course, the DNC registry. So there's two different options there for you if it's, you know, depending on how you're getting your leads. All right. So going in to add a contact, as you can see, you're going to have to add a group. So I'm just going to go ahead and drop one into customers. Tags. Now, with the tags, this one's pretty big. I know Mark was touching on that just a moment ago. So in brief, because I mean, there's a lot of different ways this can work when it comes to tags. There's in all areas in which you can add a contact into the system. And I mean that by integrations. I do believe inbound campaigns, importing. It's going to ask you if you want to apply a tag to a lead. So for example, if you have one entire list, let's say of 1,000 people, and you know specifically that all these people are plumbers that live in Queens or that service the areas of Queens inside of New York, right, that bureau, you can simply use that tag called Queens. And that way, you know, if you were to ever do a marketing campaign, let's say a voicemail drop or SMS, and you're sending out a master list of all plumbers in the entirety of New York, but you only want to send it to people who are in Queens, then of course, applying that tag when you're sending out a campaign is only going to send to Queens out of that entire master list. So with that ideal in mind, take it and run with it. There's plenty of different ways that you can use this. There's also a skip leads tag as well. So if there's an entire list, you know, vice versa from the example that I just gave you, you can skip a particular tag and send to an entire group. So that's kind of in a gist how the tags work. And again, you can find that in all your campaigns. In this particular case, I'm not going to worry about tags or applying one to myself. I am going to go ahead and give myself a name. And I'm going to add a mobile number. The reason why I'm adding a mobile number, and this is huge, a lot of people fail to realize, if you don't have a mobile number, or for example, a phone number, a cell phone, you can't receive text messages and you can't send text messages to it. I do know that there are some landlines that allow text messaging to be sent and it goes to the voicemail, I believe, and the voicemail reads out the text message, but I personally have not seen that happen or heard it happen. It's just something that came across as far as information goes. But definitely want to make sure that you have a mobile number in here in order to send and receive text messages to this particular lead. Phone numbers, same thing. You can certainly utilize the same phone number that you choose for your mobile and your phone. Address, of course, these are all default fields, and I'll go over that in just a moment. As you can see from this point going down are all custom fields. This is something that you can build yourself, or you can utilize it when you import your contacts. And I'll go over that, of course, again in just a moment. So I'm going to select this, submit this contact. As you can see now inside the contact manager, here's one contact. All right, so when it comes to adding contacts manually, this is something that's a little bit more detailed. If you want to quickly add somebody, we do have the widget up here. Basic information, it's not going to allow you to add any or enter in any custom fields in particular. As you can see, what you see here is what you're able to enter. Now, now that you have your contacts in here, or a contact, should I say, there's different things that we can do when it comes to managing your contact and filtering through. As you can see here, we do have a way of searching by phone number, email, zip code, and city, first name, last name. We do have it by groups as well. So if you want to filter a particular group and actually look at the contacts inside of that group, this is where you'll do so. And then, of course, if you have particular tags, this is where you'll do that. We do have an option here to search by subscribe and unsubscribe. This is another big one as well. A lot of people always say, you know, I have a bunch of contacts in this group and they're not moving. What's going on? The reason why they're not moving is because they're in an unsubscribed status. Okay, when they are in an unsubscribed status, the system kind of puts a halt to the action that you can provide for that lead. You can't move them, you can't delete them, and that's really for your protection. You know, you don't want to accidentally put them into an autoresponder campaign when they already told you don't contact me no more. Same thing with deleting them out. You know, we don't want you to necessarily delete them out, because if you do, and you accidentally, you know, re-add them or re-import them after they've told you not to contact them, you know, you might land yourself in hot water. And that's part of the reason why we leave that as unsubscribed. In order to delete a contact who's been unsubscribed, you have to resubscribe them. By all means, you can do it if you want to, but there's the fair warning of the chances of something going wrong. So for example here, and let's jump into moving and copying. So of course, clicking on here, the subscribe link, it's going to ask if you want to unsubscribe the contacts. Click on OK, it's going to automatically unsubscribe them. Now, if at any point you wanted to take a look at your unsubscribed contacts, to the contact tab, you'll want to go ahead and click on unsubscribe contacts. As you can see here, I am listed on here. It's going to show me the dates. It's going to show me the reason. I do believe the reason is going to say manual because I manually did so. Now, of course, if they unsubscribe from a, let's say, SMS campaign, it's going to say unsubscribe via SMS. Same thing with the email, unsubscribe via email. So as you can see, you have a way of exporting, filtering, and taking a look at all the reasons, the time, the date, who did it, and why, as far as unsubscribing contacts or unsubscribe contacts. Back over to the contact manager. Again, I can't move this contact because they're in an unsubscribed status. It will give me the option to do so, but just keep in mind it's not going to let you. So in order to move this contact, I would have to resubscribe, of course, as you saw, by clicking that link. Now at this point, let's say I want to copy a contact into a different group. Now, just to give some further explanation on the differences between the two. As you can see here, I have a lot of groups, and I want to keep this contact in the group that it's already in, but I just want to copy them in a new group. Okay, so that's when you'll want to utilize the copy function. So right now I'm in the customers. Let's say I want to copy myself into the Google Forms. Click on copy, action performed. It's going to automatically refresh the page, and when I click on the group here, as you can see, I'm in both. Now, if I want to move the contacts, keep in mind what that actually does is unlink all the groups that I am currently in and only moves me into the group that I select. So again, let's say I want to go to the direct line inbounds, and I move myself. I'm only inside of that particular group. Okay, so that's how that works. There is bulk send, of course. That's not something that we typically suggest our users to use. It just allows you to create a bulk list and just blast out something. But it's not something, as I mentioned, that we necessarily advise our users to use unless in emergency situations. You can always send out a bulk campaign by using the broadcast option that we have here. All right, so the next thing, of course, that we have is, I'm going to unselect that, is the view activity. This might look different for some people if you're just joining in. We did change the way that this looks. Before, there used to be a lot of icons right here allowing you to do different things. This particular link is going to take you directly over to the power dialer. And of course, this one is quite powerful. There's a lot of things that you can do inside this area. So to start, as you can see in the top left corner over here, we have the name. We have the ability to edit this lead directly. As you can see, the fields popped up here. Clicking on save will make sure that information is up to date. We do have the opportunity to add tags as well. Now, the groups assigned is going to show you that. It's going to show you the deal status if you apply one. Of course, as you can see here, we have a lot of basic information details about this particular lead. If you ever needed to send an email, text, or make a call, as you can see, the buttons are here. If there's any secondary contacts, now I'm going to go over this information in just a moment because duplicate leads is huge. It's a big conversation that we always have, and I know it's something that we're still kind of working on. We're trying to adjust a little bit to get it just right. So when it comes to duplicates or related leads, in other words, if there were to be any, they will be right here under the secondary contacts. Now you may ask yourself, what would be considered a secondary lead or a duplicate related lead? In short, let's say, for example, my name is Jessica, and there's multiple Jessicas, and we all have different emails and different phone numbers. That is not considered a related or duplicate lead. What would be considered a related or duplicate would be someone in the account that you import or add that has either the same phone number or mobile number or email address. Okay, because of course, if I have, one Jessica, one Amy, and one Sarah, and they all have the same email address, the system's not going to send them 3 emails. It's only going to send 1 email because they only have 1 email address, regardless of how many contacts have the same email. All right, same thing with the phone numbers in regards to making calls and to sending text messages. It's only going to send once. Of course, we have the custom fields. Any SMS activity or MMS, which is multimedia, this is where you'll see that log. Keep in mind that this and this pertains to campaigns only. Same thing with inbound and outbounds. If you were to do any activity inside the contact power dialer, it's not going to be listed here under this log. It only pertains to campaigns that you're sending out. Same thing with email, voicemail. Of course, you can always view the 30 days prior if they are a contact that has been in your accounts and you've done actions against them prior to that. Inbound, outbound, same thing. All right, over here, of course, we have the lead notes. This is going to allow you to keep track and see any activities particularly. So the move that I just did, as you can see, the copy, unsubscribing, resubscribing, being added into a group, all that information is going to be clocked right here. Now, adding a note, obviously that's an option. As you can see here, there is an opportunity to send this particular lead directly a SMS, email, or call. We cannot do voicemail drops in this area. If you want to do voicemail drops, bring it right over to the voicemail drop tab, all right? So of course, clicking on a template, or you can just manually type something up and it will be sent directly to this person. Of course, keep in mind, if you don't have an email address for this person, don't think that you can send them an email. We do have the appointment option here. So, if you do have a calendar, or if you want to, if you haven't already, take a look at the calendar option. It's pretty awesome. You're able to embed it on websites, hyperlink it because it does provide you a URL. There's a lot of different things you can do when it comes to the calendar. Here, of course, we have the copy and lead function. If at any point you wanted to delete a group that you've assigned or a tag that you've assigned to a contact, inside of this particular screen is where you'll want to go to delete that group. So you can see if hovering over this X, it's bringing up a red color. Here we do have the opportunity. This kind of ties into the default statuses that I want to jump into in just a moment. This is pretty big. Typically, this option, or this feature, I should say, is utilized in the outbound dialer. Simply because that's where all the calls are going out from. However, if you have your users or your team members utilizing this area, they can certainly do so. It's still going to apply in the pie chart on the dashboard. It's still going to be clocked in your list when you take a look at the sales pipeline as well. So again, let's say you're on the phone and this person is qualified and I am confident that I'm going to sell them. Let's say let's do 80%. I'm 80% confident that this person is qualified and that it's a possible sale. And I've, pitched them at 2,000. Too many zeros. Okay. And we have an estimated close. Let's say, for example, I think that I'm going to close them on the 1st. If I have any comments, enter it there. And here I'm going to click on save. As you can see, it's going to update. If I go back over to the lead notes here, it's going to populate that information too. I'll show you in just a moment where you can actually dive in and look at the overview of how much money is sitting there for you to be bringing that to the bank, in other words. We do have the assigned task. This also is a fairly new feature. We've kind of updated how this worked. If you guys recall, if you guys been with us for a while, what we did have was a callback button that we applied, which is a call status for leads. And when you click on the callback, it actually pops up a task status, kind of what you see right here. So we've kind of changed it up a little bit. If you were to ever apply a task for yourself or for a lead in particular, that task is going to populate up here. As you can notice, it's the same icon as it's shown right here. So any task that you've applied to a lead or to yourself assigned, they'll populate here for you. You are able to mark it as complete, past due. You can reschedule, I believe. That way you can get those reminders, as you can see right here. Again, SMS or email options as far as sending yourself a notification. I do believe you can also send the lead a reminder as well if necessary. I do believe that's up here though. I'm not sure. I don't have my email set up yet, so I can't quote you or quote myself on that as yet. Anyhow, and of course we do have the update status. This is in particular to the call statuses. All right, so that's kind of all the things that we can do here. Of course, you can toggle through to the next contact. Of course, if you have more than one, I only have one in here right now, so it's not going to go to another person. Again, one more thing, clicking on a number up here, you can easily call somebody directly. Okay, so you don't have to be in an outbound campaign to do so. So in gist, that is the contact power dialer. So when we mention that word, that's how you access it. If, as I mentioned, if there's secondary contacts or duplicate leads, clicking on that button there is going to show you who's considered related, meaning having the same number or email address. Now we do have the advanced search area up here. I feel like it's underrated. Nobody uses it for some reason, but I do want to take the opportunity to go over this information with everyone. The advanced search allows you to really manipulate what you're looking for. So for example, I want to filter specifically contacts having only, let's say, just email. I can do so. Of course, by attributes, which are the default statuses that we have. You can filter by call status, by lead source, meaning how were they added into the system, when they were added into the system. This area right here is based off of the contact power dialer. All right, that's really important. A lot of people get confused when it comes to this particular log. If I'm looking for any inbound, outbounds, anything right here in this area, this is only going to pertain and filter any activity that was done in the contact power dialer. So of course, if I were to place a call to support team here and I did it inside of the contact power dialer, the outbound call is going to populate that information. Of course, if I were to do a outbound call from an outbound campaign specifically from this area, and if I filtered out the outbound call that you see right here, it's not going to show any information simply because I did not place it inside of the contact area, which is this tab, right? So that's definitely something that you can utilize, especially if you know that you're going to be using the contact power dialer often, and that's where you're going to be placing calls and sending things out directly. This is where you'll be able to filter that information. Clicking on reset, it's going to bring it right back. And let's jump back into the contact manager, clicking on standard there. I'm not thinking that there's anything else that pertains to the contact manager that I want to go over. I do believe that we're going to be taking questions a little bit later. So if you have any, feel free to write them in and then I'll answer those later. The next thing that I want to do is the import contacts. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. As you can see here, we have 3 tabs that are really important to keep your eye on, depending on how many leads you're intending on importing. Again, as you can see, it's asking to select a group. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. And again, as I mentioned, you can always add a tag if necessary. CSV files. This is huge. I'm going to go ahead and pull up a file that I have here. All right. So CSV, what this means is comma separated values. Excel spreadsheets, docs. I can't recall really. I haven't really used too many different ones besides CSV since here at Hot Prospector. It's the most common one that's being used, and it's the only one that can be used when importing contacts into your account. The biggest thing that I find when it comes to people importing their contacts is that they have about 20 columns. The one thing that you must do prior to importing contacts is to make sure that your spreadsheet is clean. I can't stress that enough. There's plenty of times where people write in and they're like, hey, I can't get these contacts in. They're not going in. I have 500 people. Why is only 149 importing? What's going on? Well, about 90% of the time, there's commas on the spreadsheet. And that is very important because if there's commas on your spreadsheet, it's going to be separating the values. Obviously, it's comma separated values. So when you do import, it's the system's not going to be able to read that data. So it's really important to make sure that you erase those commas. Excuse me, I needed some coffee. And also you want to make sure there's no special characters. So what I mean by special characters, commas, dollar signs, pound signs, asterisks, all of this, apostrophes, commas especially, question marks, all the things that you're seeing here that I'm typing up are definitely things that you do not want on your spreadsheet. The only thing that is okay as far as special characters would be your dashes, your periods, your at signs, and I think that's it. Yeah, that's about it. I think there's not really, and forward slashes or backslashes. Those are the only ones that we have no issues with in regards because, of course, websites, email addresses, things like that are common with these characters. Otherwise, nothing else it would hinder definitely the import process. If you are exporting data from a third party such as ClickFunnels, Wufoo, wherever it is, as I mentioned, there's going to be a lot of columns. What you really need to consider is what information do you really want to keep in your system and how are you going to use that information when you market to these people. As you can see here on this spreadsheet, the common stuff that we have is first name, last, mobile, phone, and email. Very seldom do I see websites, do I see websites, phone, company names, things like that. I mean, of course, those things can be imported into the system, just have to have a column. But if there's like a date, a lead source ID, like there's so many different things that are not necessarily needed. But of course, that's up to your discretion. With the information that's being provided here, I'm going to go ahead and show you what this import looks like. And I'm actually going to add something custom in here as well. So let's do favorite color. Okay, and I'm going to add in blue, purple, just some simple stuff. Notice that I did utilize this email address already inside this account. The phone number is different. However, this email address is going to be considered a duplicate. So we'll definitely go over that information. I'm going to go ahead and save this information here and select this file. All right. And of course here, agree and accept. If you ever wanted to scrub your list, again, not sure how everyone gets their leads, but you can certainly do so by clicking on this check mark. All right, I'm going to go ahead and submit. And this is what it's going to look like. Here's where you have to match your data. This is going to be very similar. I know Adam went over this information the other day when he talked about Zapier and matching the data. This is a really big deal. If you don't match your data correctly, the data is not going to go in the correct fields and, of course, therefore cause issues. So default, as you can see, basic stuff right here. We have the first name. We have the last name. When it comes to CSV files, I typically tell people if you don't have, um, if you're not sure if it's a mobile or a phone number, then just create 2 columns and copy the same thing and put it in the mobile field as well. It's not going to charge you any difference. You're not going to get, nothing's really a big deal about that. There are third-party platforms that you can use to actually identify if it is a phone number or a mobile number, but you're going to have to, do that on your own time. The system does not do that for you. Phone number, let's do mobile. We do have email. And now here we have a custom field. I don't recall having a favorite color on here. I don't see one either. So when it comes down to it and you have a field that you want to import, you are able to add a new custom field. Now, when adding the field, you want to make sure that you use the underscore. So for example, if this column is called favorite color per my spreadsheet, if I go over here, and then we'll do an underscore, and then we'll do color. Doing this will automatically add that custom field in. And of course, when we import this data, it's going to go ahead and put that data and match it to where it needs to go, which is that custom field. After you've matched everything, you'll want to go ahead and submit. Now, as you can see here, it said successfully imported 6 out of 7 records, and there was 1 duplicate that was skipped. As I mentioned before I imported, there is a duplicate contact with the same exact phone number. I'm sorry, email address. So now, real quick before I go back over to the contact manager, if you're importing a list, let's say that has, anything, I would say anything more than 1,500 contacts on it, you'll want to come right over here. And this is going to notify you as well. Anyhow, it's going to say it might take, 5 to several minutes for your contacts to actually import completely. And if that's the case, because you do have a high volume of contacts, you'll want to go over to process queue. This is where you're going to be able to see and keep track of how long, when it's going, has it processed, is it done yet? There are times where the system might lag a little bit and you're going to have to click refresh. It's completely okay to do so. Click on refresh to make sure that you're looking at the most up-to-date information. If you find that it's kind of taking a little bit too long, you can always either contact us, or what I would do first is go over to your groups tab, and you'll want to go ahead and occasionally click on refresh. That way you'll be able to see, did anything import at all, or is it still going, is it in process? Typically, if you've waited about a little bit over than 30 minutes, it should not take that long, by the way. If it does take that long and you're not seeing anything in here, but you have a whole list of, say, 5,000, what I would do is come right back over here to the process queue and just delete it and re-import. And that would probably fix your issue if it does not go right away, of course. If anything failed, it'll tell you right here as well. In this case, of course, as you can see, it said it's successfully imported. So I'm going to go over to my groups and shoot, I don't even remember what group I put it in. Let me see. Of course, clicking on refresh is going to let me know. There's 1, there's 6. Okay, Facebook, bam. So we have 3 emails total, and we have 6 contacts altogether here inside of this group. If we go over to the contact manager, again, you're able to see the entire list of contacts that have been put in. There is not a duplicated lead. As you can see here, that is me. I've added myself in there first. If there's any duplicate leads, it's going to populate here for you. Okay. Yeah, so that's importing. Pretty simple stuff. It's really just important to make sure, again, your spreadsheet is clean. Under no circumstances will it work if it's not. All right. So after you've imported, of course, you may consider exporting your contacts if necessary, clicking on that tab there. You'll be able to choose. Now, just to clarify, because this one has been a common question, there's two different tabs here. We have default and we have custom. If you only want to export the default fields, and I'm just going to jump into this screen, might as well. As you can see, the gray areas from first name up to additional info. This is all considered default fields. Okay, so again, if you only want to export data that is considered in the default fields area for these contacts, then it's only going to export that data. If you also want to do custom with the defaults, then you'll want to choose this tab. Processing the queue, whenever you've selected to export a particular group or more than one for that matter, it's going to show you here the process, how long it's been, when it's ready. When it is ready, it's going to, for one, send you an email to the email accounts that you have associated with this account that you're using, of course, or I'm sorry, you can come in here and actually download it directly. It's going to export it as a CSV file for you. So those are the two different options that you have as far as exporting and how to get that data. All right, so we've went over the contacts, adding a contact, importing, exporting. We talked about the unsubscribed contacts. We jumped on the groups a little bit and the tags. Let's jump into that. So here, of course, as I mentioned, you can always add tags. You can delete them from right here as well. Completely up to you on how you want to do that. As I mentioned previously, when you go in to create campaigns, so for example, SMS. As you can see here, it's going to ask you to apply a tag if necessary. I don't really feel like there's too much to say about the tags. As I mentioned earlier in the video, if you guys did miss it and you're just joining in, I did talk about the tags and how to best utilize that, whether just importing those contacts or, of course, manually adding them in, and how to utilize that with campaigns. Probably go over more of tags on a different occasion. Contact fields, custom fields. So as you can see here, as I mentioned, there's defaults. Down here, we have the option to add custom. Okay, so you'll want to click on add fields, come down here, fill out what you want. As you can see, my favorite color that I just added in the import area is now here. You can add as many as you want. It certainly depends on what type of information you're trying to gather. Where your information is coming from, for example. We do have options as far as radio buttons, dates, name, phone, mobile, text area, which is specific for a larger amount of data that you're trying to add in for that contact, kind of like the additional info. Okay. So this is huge. This is something that's going to populate and be available for you when you're using your inbound, your outbounds. Of course, in the contact manager, as I showed you a moment, you can always add this information in when you're on the phone with these people. In addition to that, with the lead forms, which is right here, this could be information that you can require them to fill out as well. So it's really important to, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, this webinar, is to make sure that before you get started with, importing your contacts and all that good stuff, really think about how you want to strategize this. What is your plan? Of course, you can always come back and change it. I think that's one of the biggest things that people do is they work themselves up to try and make it perfect when you can always, you got to test it out. You got to see what's going to work best for you, see what's fitting for you, and then if necessary, adjust it later.
Can I let's stop for just a quick second here
Sure.
and talk about these custom or these contact types or field types. Sorry. So the go ahead and click on the box over here on the right. Yeah. Okay. So just these are very important for you to use when you're creating your database the first time. And I'll tell you why, because recently we made a change to the way that our contacts are viewed and sorted. And let's see, how do I explain this? Can you open up a new tab and go into the contact dialer?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's just do this here.
All right. So just open up any contact. Thank you. Okay, so we recently added the secondary contact tab here to the contact dialer, and this is also available in your power dialer as well. Now,
Mhm.
the reason why we did this, and if you go over back to that other tab and click Add New Field, scroll down. We'll just call this one Secondary Contact, and change the type to phone, or we'll call it name. Actually, no, I'm sorry, phone. All right, now go ahead and save this, and then go back over and hit refresh.
On this page or
Yeah.
custom fields? Okay.
Back on the contact page, right there. Oh, right there.
Okay, sorry.
Click on secondary contact.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So the secondary contact phone number, the secondary contact email, all of those additional fields will automatically show up inside of this particular area. So when you're putting together your contact structure, make sure that you're considering these additional pieces of information that you may want to have, because we have a future update that's going to be coming, I don't know, in the next few weeks, that's going to allow you to specify which of those numbers you want to use in your campaign. So if you're sending out a broadcast message, if you're sending out a text message, if you're sending out an email, any of those things, you will have the ability to create campaigns that are based upon that secondary contact information.
Okay,
So
that's
yeah,
nice.
so it's just something I want to make sure that we, that people get in the habit of doing that. So normally what would happen is somebody would just load their list up, and if they had like a mobile field and a phone field, they'd put those in there. But if they had additional numbers, sometimes they might delete those, or they would just add them in as another field. But
Hmm.
now you have the ability to specify that it's actually a phone number or it's actually a mobile number. So then you'll be able to create a campaign for that particular number on that contact.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. Another thing about those fields that are important, can you go back over to the custom fields? Scroll down and just select one of those drop boxes again, or drop downs. We also have the ability for you to add dates. Okay.
Hmm.
Now these dates are useful for anniversary dates, birth dates, or any other kind of date that's important to that contact. There are campaigns which we'll get into on another future training,
Yep,
where you can actually schedule voicemails, text messages, and emails to be sent on those dates. Like,
yep,
for example, if you want to send a birthday campaign, if you want to send an anniversary campaign, if you're an insurance agent and you want to send a notice for a cancel date on a particular policy, you could do all that,
yep.
as long as you have those dates in there. So these are the fields that you want to make sure that you pay close attention to when you're loading in your contacts. As far as the other things like text box, text area, radio, drop downs, all of those things are just more useful for, adding and import, making sure that you have, like, if you have information that is that's static and it's not going to change. So you want to make sure that you pre-populate that beforehand before trying to import those into the system.
Right, and I do see that there's a question in there. What is the radio in custom field? As Mark mentions, it's basically an option, a static option in which you can choose, kind of like a multiple choice, right, Mark?
Yep,
Okay, so just like that, you'll enter in the different options that they can select. And then, of course, when you go in to do your lead forms, things like that, this will be presented to that lead, and they'll have an option to choose. And then, of course, you'll want to come back up to the top and click on Save to make sure any changes that you've made in this area is up to date.
correct.
All right,
So
Mark, did you want to talk
that
about
was
anything
pretty much
else?
it. I just wanted to make sure that we we did cover that because those types, those field types,
Hmm.
are really important for you if you're importing your contacts. So like if you have a date, like a birth date, and you import it into the system as a field like a text, and it's not, and it doesn't have, and you don't use the date field, then it won't be something that you'll be able to use for those campaigns. The system
Now,
has to know. Yeah.
right. Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, you're go ahead.
Another thing that I wanted to point out as well too, and this is huge for email and SMS also. For example, let's say you have depending on how you're getting your leads or how you're importing them, let's just say, for example, that you don't have their first name, but you do want to make the campaign friendly, somewhat personal in a sense, but you don't have their first name. And of course, typically when you address somebody in an SMS or an email, you want to utilize their first name. So in this case, if you don't have it, for example, here you can just say friends, right? So when you go in and actually create your email template or your SMS template, and you still want to address them in a friendly manner by utilizing their first name, obviously when it comes to inserting tokens, it truly matters if there's data in that particular field. If you don't have a first name in the contact's profile, and you intend on using the first name token, instead of leaving it blank, it will insert the word friends in there. So you can do that, of course, with any of these fields that you're seeing here. If there's an alternate token that you prefer to use, if you don't happen to have that information, such as a first name or a state, you can certainly enter in a different value. And when you do insert that token, it's going to plug in that information automatically for you. So that's definitely something that, it's a pretty big deal. I'm not sure. I mean, most of the time people have, the first names and whatnot. But if it so happens to be the case that you don't, coming into your custom fields will allow you to replace and utilize a different word rather than not anything at all. So the next thing that we have here is the default statuses. I honestly think that I'm going to be going over inbound and outbound on a different webinar soon, very soon. And I think I want to save the default statuses for that particular webinar because this is going to be really big in regards to your sales pipeline and allowing you the mobility to move your leads through your funnels accordingly. And this is kind of how you would want to build your campaigns, especially if you're utilizing the inbound or outbound dialer, which is what we're really good for. So I'll save the default statuses for another webinar. But again, as I mentioned, this is going to be a pretty big deal for people who are using and calling out and taking inbound calls as well. We
Yeah.
do have,
So let,
go
let's
ahead.
let's do this because the contact tab does have a lot of other things in there that I know you were. It seems like trying to get through all of those fields or all of those sub tabs
Yeah.
options in the tab. But let's let's go ahead and stop right now for questions because we
Okay.
only have a few minutes left, and then we can always go back and cover this in a different training day. One question came in from Doug,
Hmm.
and he was asking, or not Doug, but Reagan. He was asking, does it matter what year is selected for the birthday or anniversary? Now, I've, I'm not exactly sure if you even need the year. Do you? Is it just
Not, I mean, of course, if you want to know what their age is or how long they've been on a membership or whatever. But as far as doing a campaign that pertains to that date scenario, events campaign, don't believe it goes off of the year. It only goes off of the month and the date.
okay? So if there is no year, what happens? What's the format need to be? I guess is what we're trying to get at.
The format, I guess the one that would make most sense. I can't really say. That's a good question though. I don't recall. Let me see. Let's take a look real quick. If we have a date right here. So let's do today. I mean, I suppose it will allow you to just enter in a month and a date.
Well, no, the date. Here, let me you've got the date selected. Let's create a new form, call it date, or a new field, call it date. And then, yeah, and then save that. And then go ahead and go into the contact, that one that you had open already in the contact manager, or that, whatever.
I think I have one open.
And then just click on that date.
Okay, yeah, so it's going to require, it's probably going to add in a year as
Yeah.
well.
So it doesn't necessarily, it looks like there's your date format. It needs to be month, day, year. So it's 2-digit month, 2-digit day, 4-digit year. But the day, the year itself doesn't matter when it comes to sending out birthdays and anniversaries.
Right.
It's just a matter of the day that actual it's the date for the day of the campaign is the month and the date. So hopefully
Yep.
that answers your question. But my question was more about how to import it. So as long as you have the 2-digit month, 2-digit year, or sorry, 2-digit month, 2-digit day, and 4-digit year, then you should be able to import it just fine, and make sure that it's in this format. Does that answer your question, Reagan?
Hopefully. All right,
Doug
so
said so you can send a series of messages, say 2 days before the break. Yeah, and we'll get into those campaigns later on how to actually set those up. But yeah, that's the point of the birthday campaigns and the anniversary campaigns, is to
yep,
be
you
able to
can,
use that date.
I believe you can go up to a week out prior to the actual date. And I do believe there is an option to do after as well. So it's a lot of flexibility when it comes to when you want that message to go out as far as the dates goes.
It's if you're looking for it, it's under your profile under event reminder campaigns.
Yep. So if we scroll all the way down here and
Down. There it is.
yep. So this is where you'll be able to create that event reminder.
Yeah, and you can send it 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days before or after, and on the day of the event.
Yep.
Very, very powerful feature. Okay, any other questions? All right, well, then we're going to go ahead and end for today. We'll be back again tomorrow. And tomorrow, just to give you a preview, we have, oh wait, tomorrow's me.
Yep. Tomorrow is Feature Fridays.
Tomorrow's Feature Friday, so I'm going to be talking about features that we've released. I'm not exactly sure which one I'm going to start with yet, but will be definitely something fun. So you're going to want to be here if you're into features and cool new stuff.
Absolutely. All right. Well, it was great hosting this one for today. Of course, I went over the contact manager. I do believe next Wednesday, I'll more than likely go over, as I mentioned a moment ago, default lead form. Click to call is a big one. And then I'll jump into the inbound campaign. There's a lot of new features inside of the inbound campaigns. Whisper, for example, is a big one. So make sure you tune in or catch me on Thursday of next week, same time, same place, and we'll go in a little bit further on how to utilize the system.
Awesome. Thanks again, Vika.
No problem. You guys have a great day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.